Welcome to the Space for Grace podcast, a place where you can come as you are, hear genuine conversations about women's holistic health, and leave educated, inspired, and encouraged about your health and fitness journey. Get ready to find freedom to flourish in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. I'm your host, MK, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Space for Grace. Hey everyone, today on the podcast we have Julie and Lena with Wholistic Renewal. Wholistic Renewal is a functional medicine practice that specializes in optimizing women's gut and hormonal health through functional lab testing and lifestyle choices that address root causes. Their one-on-one consultations, functional lab tests, lifestyle recommendations, and customized protocols will empower you to understand your body, restore function, and renew your health. So welcome, Julie and Lena.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course, so glad to have you guys here today. I love what you guys are doing with Wholistic Renewal, and just want all the people to know about functional medicine and what you guys do because it's so important. And I've mentioned functional medicine several times, I feel like in every podcast, but we haven't done a whole podcast on just what functional medicine is and who it might be for. So this is going to be a great conversation today. But let's just jump in and start first. If y'all will share what led you to become functional medicine practitioners and why you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah, so Alina and I initially met in college, and we bonded over our shared passion for health and fitness. But more importantly, we also bonded over the fact that we both struggled greatly with health issues. I was about 10 years old and really struggled with my gut health. I was sent from doctor to doctor, getting no answers, searching for what was wrong with me. I could not last a day at school before getting sent home. And so I was sent from doctor to doctor with just getting this kind of umbrella term diagnosis of IBS. But doctors could not tell me what was actually wrong, if I was intolerant or sensitive to something. Got nothing ultimately from those doctor visits, and went to the top of the top specialists in New York, and they could provide me no answers. And it was actually my mom and me just researching about functional medicine and these natural holistic approaches that ultimately got me to, heal and stay well. And in college, I met Lena, and we also bonded over the fact that she was struggling with her own health issues at the time.
Yeah, my story starts pretty much after you'd pretty much fully healed. I ended up losing my period for a while, and I was really into working out, kind of on that bodybuilding train, so to speak. And I started getting really lean and ended up getting breast implants. And that was really the start of when everything went downhill. So within a few months of getting implants, I noticed that my hair was falling out. My gut started acting up. I started getting really constipated and kind of developed a gluten sensitivity. And then I got diagnosed with PCOS. And that PCOS diagnosis was really troublesome because all of the symptoms that I ended up having after getting breast implants, I ended up blaming on it's the PCOS, it's these hormonal imbalances. And I never really pieced together that it was the implants causing all of these issues. So it was over the course of 3 years, my health it was a bumpy road, started declining. And I was a healthy girl. I would go to the gym, I ate really clean. I'd have my occasional Monster energy drinks, but for the most part, I was super healthy. I didn't drink, and I was falling apart. My health was just declining so fast. I had brain fog, major fatigue. I was roommates with her at the time, and I feel bad for putting her through it because she had to live with me, but I was just on this roller coaster, joint pain, insomnia, panic attacks. And then all of a sudden Julia ended up mentioning, do you think it's your implants? And I think I just blacked out and just blocked my ears because I didn't want to hear it. But as my health just kept declining and I was desperate for answers, and it was just taking such a mental and emotional toll on me. I started researching breast implant illness and found so much evidence of, like these other women dealing with it, and my symptoms matched theirs. And it just made
Mm.
so much sense. The pieces all fit together. And I decided like, this is the last like potential thing that I haven't considered. So let's try this because I'm desperate to get better. So I ended up getting taken out. And then it's been a long road to healing. Like after getting them out, I still had a lot of gut issues, and hormonal imbalances. Just, I mean, it takes time for the body to rebalance. But I mean, since getting them out, all of my symptoms have gone away. I got my period back, my gut healed. And it was really like, it was a gift, honestly, like this whole journey. And I think I speak for both of us with like the health struggles. It was tough, but they led us to find, holistic medicine and to found holistic renewal. So it was a blessing in disguise ultimately.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
before we decided to start our business, we worked corporate jobs and we quickly realized that there was like something missing. We were like so passionate about health and wellness and also noticed like the prevalence of all of these health issues today.
Mhm.
And so ultimately we knew that like in order to help women who are struggling with their health and like kind of like are tired of getting no answers from their primary care doctors, as we both had that kind of experience, we just knew that we needed to start our own company. And like we said to ourselves, if anybody can do it, we can do it, given our backstories and the emotion ultimately behind our why. Yeah.
Mhm. That's so relatable to so many people dealing with chronic illness like PCOS or IBS. Just that process of trying to figure out, is my body broken? What's wrong? And then not getting answers from the traditional medical model. Um, so will y'all share a little more about how functional medicine differs from traditional medicine and like maybe the difference between your experiences with trying to get answers from the medical model versus when you found the world of holistic medicine, how that helped with all of your symptoms?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like kind of a top level definition of functional medicine is a root cause approach that really considers the whole person, not just their symptoms. And what's really unique about functional medicine is it recognizes the way that the body is a whole system. It's not all of these separate systems. It's actually so intricately connected. No system is working in isolation. And by acknowledging that, we take a whole body approach. And it's very different than traditional medicine, which isolates all these parts. And I think you can see that in the way that, you go to your primary care doctor, as like we both did. And when I was dealing with like all of these random symptoms from my breast implants, I had brain fog, I was having hormonal imbalances, gut
Mhm.
issues, joint issues. I ended up leaving my primary care doctor with a list of specialists to call. And I remember I found a note on my phone and it was like radiology, here's a phone number, OBGYN, phone number, endocrinology, phone number. And it was like you're just getting sent in all of these different directions to chase down the symptoms and isolate these systems that, or sorry, isolate these symptoms and try to treat them specifically when ultimately everything's so connected and what starts in one system can cascade into another. And, when you're treating each system separately, you're going to spend years like chasing these symptoms. And, that's ultimately kind of the path that we were set on. And we quickly found that like it's not working. You really need to get to that root and then take a whole body approach to healing as well.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I think that like this whole body and whole person perspective that we use in functional medicine means that we look at everything from like what you eat to how much you sleep to your stress levels and your health history. We're asking those deeper questions and we're trying to dig a little bit deeper than, your traditional general physician. And so we won't just offer a prescription to treat your symptoms. We want to know why those symptoms are showing up in the first place and then use natural means of healing. So this could look like adjusting your nutrition or even like your stress levels, your sleep habits, your exercise routine, all of which are recommendations that are tailored to you and your needs and not just a cookie cutter approach of what I learned in medical school that may work for you and not even that, so yeah.
Yeah, a whole body approach. I love that because everyone is unique. And so what you learn in the medical model just doesn't apply to every single person. So I love that it's individualized and you're looking at all these different aspects of your life. Like when you were dealing with the illness from your breast implants, no one thought to ask that question. And so it's so important to have someone who's looking at the whole picture, knows all the right questions to ask, to be able to get to that root cause. That's so good. So I know a big part of functional medicine is also the labs that you guys can do for people to help figure out what exactly is going on, whether it's a hormone issue or a gut issue or a deficiency somewhere. And that can be really helpful to test, not guess, and kind of
Yes.
expedite the process of figuring out what's going on and how to heal, how to help your body heal itself. So can y'all explain a little bit about those lab tests and how they differ from traditional labs?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, I mean, I think functional lab testing is like by far one of the most powerful tools that functional medicine has. And we use it ultimately to like identify and then address root causes. And I think it all kind of is built on the foundation of recognizing the body is so intricately connected. And functional labs, like, I guess they capitalize on that because it's a very comprehensive view of your health. So it's evaluating multiple systems. And like, for instance, when we run a Dutch test, which is like a dried urine test that looks at your hormones, like your sex hormones, we're not just testing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. No, we're looking at how you're metabolizing these hormones. We're looking at markers that will show if your liver's really congested, because that contributes greatly to hormonal imbalances. It's looking also at like oxidative stress in the body, markers of inflammation, and we'll look at melatonin, which is a great marker to examine gut health as well. So even the tests themselves map on perfectly to that functional medicine model, that really considers the way that all these systems are connected and impacting one another. So at the end of the day, like these labs that doctors run, these normally blood tests that you're going to run with a traditional doctor, they don't look nearly as deep as functional lab tests do.
Mhm.
And I think like, the epitome of this is like, when you were going to get diagnosed with IBS, and I was there too, they were going to test for IBS. They do like a blood test. And it's like, I don't think this is the best way to be testing gut health, just looking at these like very vague markers of like inflammation and such. And it's like, yeah, you might test negative for Crohn's disease, but that's ignoring like there can be so much inflammation in the gut. You can have bacterial overgrowths, pathogens, really weak immunity, and the test's going to miss that, and it's just going to
Mhm.
end up giving you the answer of, oh, you don't have Crohn's. It's not going to look at like, okay, well, if it's not Crohn's, what is this GI map and like stool sample that the functional lab test will show you? What does that mean? What does that say?
Mhm.
And I would even say if there's even a test, like if they even run tests, because in my case for IBS, there is no test to diagnose you with it. It's just you're diagnosed based off of a cluster of symptoms. And if you match that, then you're diagnosed with IBS and you're kind of pushed out the door. So especially in our case, we've heard the like, oh, your labs look normal. So, we don't know what is going on. And this could be so misleading and so frustrating for a number of reasons, because first off, normal is not optimal at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And second, what traditional medicine defines as normal is still not optimal. And so
Right.
ultimately, this is the beauty of functional lab testing, since our reference ranges on these tests are functional, meaning that they are a little bit tighter. And this is because rather than basing off reference ranges on a population that has gotten more sick over time, as is the case in, our modern US healthcare system, the reference ranges on these functional labs are meant to reflect a population that is healthier and of optimal health.
Mm.
And it takes, I would say it takes a preventative approach as well, where like, even if
Mhm.
you're within that functional range, we're going to notice like, oh, you're a little bit closer to like, you're a little bit higher on the higher end. And want to keep an eye on that. We want to figure out why you're not really within like the middle of this range. So typically, like when you go to see your doctor and you get your lab results done, get your lab results back, they're only going to flag the things that like are marked red or like yellow, I guess, being too low. But they're never going to look at like, oh, something's approaching and trending higher. And like, what does that mean? Like, let's dive into that. It's like, let's only address it when it's a problem and when you're too sick.
Right. I was going to ask about that. So I'm glad you brought up the optimal ranges versus what traditional doctors would compare your results to, comparing it to just the average sick population in America. So I love that aspect of functional medicine testing, that you're comparing it to optimal ranges and helping people not get to a point of having all these really bad symptoms and kind of catching things early and preventing things from getting worse and worse. So that's awesome. That's so important. Now I know you guys really know a lot about gut health and your practice focuses on gut health and helping people optimize that. So why is gut health so important to our overall health?
This is one of our favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
So take the
Yeah.
lead.
I mean, I would say like it really stems from like our own personal like medical experiences. And then on top of that, all of the education that we've had within the functional medicine space. It was so apparent that the gut is the foundation of health. It is at the center of everything. Almost every chronic illness and ailment that you're going to see out there is stems from an imbalance in the gut. And you know, the tricky thing is it's not always going to manifest as gut-based symptoms, but that doesn't mean that it's unrelated to the gut. And I mean, I would say like, if we're going to go into like statistics, I would say the most mind-blowing like fact out there really that we learned is that the gut makes up the majority, nearly 70 to 80% of your immune system. Like, I wish that was common knowledge. I think something funny that I always thought was like, oh, your gut is like totally separate from your respiratory system, and your respiratory system's like part of like, you know, the immune system, because that's when like you're coughing, you get a cold, you get sick. I had no idea that your gut was actually the center and foundation of that immune system.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like even going back to how all of these bodily systems are so interconnected, I think a large part of why the reason why we focus so much on gut health is because our gut microbiome and our endocrine system, so all of our hormones are very much linked. So we have trillions and billions of bacteria and microbes in our gut, which influence both the production and then also the signaling of essential hormones. So cortisol, thyroid hormones, our serotonin, our mood, estrogen, insulin, everything. So when we see someone with an imbalanced gut, we often also see imbalances in things like cortisol, like thyroid hormones, like their mood, serotonin.
I mean, mental health and gut health are like so intricately connected. And that's something that I'm so glad that the mental health space is like starting to tap into. But like, it's fascinating. And then also like skin. That's the other one we see a ton.
If you have an imbalance in your gut microbiome, you're going to see eruptions in your skin, whether that may be eczema, acne, rosacea, keratosis pilaris. You're going to see it show up on your skin. And so we're not crazy about the gut for no reason. It impacts so much more than how we just digest our food. It impacts every single other major system in the body.
Wow. So crazy. Yeah, I love that y'all touched on immunity, hormone imbalance, skin, like so many things that you wouldn't think are connected to the gut can be traced back to that root cause, which again is why looking at the whole body is so important. So that's amazing. So say someone is having some symptoms, they come to you guys, you find that there's probably an imbalance in the gut going on. What do you do from there? Like, what's a typical treatment plan look like?
Yeah, so we typically work with our clients for roughly 90 days, since this is the amount of time it takes for the body to truly see changes and kind of get into a routine. So with all our protocols, we take a 5-pronged approach. So that includes diet, it includes rest and recovery, exercise, stress reduction, and supplements. So we find that focusing on these 5 pillars truly allows our clients to make those sustainable changes they need in order to get well.
Like, and also stay well.
Yeah.
And I mean, what's beautiful is like those treatment plans are so customized because it's based directly off of these functional lab tests that we run. And again, like for most clients, because everything is really rooted in the gut, we start with 2 tests, like a food sensitivities test and then a GI map. And those typically are like where we get most of our, recommendations from. And then in some cases, we'll also run like thyroid panels, we'll run a Dutch test, and dive into like other areas depending on what symptoms they're dealing with. But all of these protocols are like completely tailored to that person's lifestyle and results. And it's a custom, like one-on-one approach. It's, I think, really unique, especially in the medical space, because the traditional doctor isn't really going to take the time to do that, unfortunately.
I would also like to mention, like, I think majority of how we create these recommendations for our clients are because of the intake forms that we send them. And they are slightly long, but I will say they give us the opportunity to really dig deeper and really understand our client and their lifestyle holistically.
So medical history, it's like how they're sleeping, bowel movements, like what kind of foods they're eating, even like histories of like antibiotic use. We ask about, like, do you have breast implants? Like that's a question we ask too. Because all of that, you need that context to really understand and isolate and figure out that root cause or root causes oftentimes.
What is it about the breast implants? I'm just curious about this that causes the symptoms. I just haven't dug into this research-wise.
Yeah. So it's definitely a complex topic that like, I think the medical system, they're like just starting to dip their toe in to understand. And ultimately, I think it comes back to like, what is that implant? It is silicone or saline, and it's in a shell that's made of heavy metals. It is nothing but, honestly bad stuff. And while they say it doesn't bleed and like leach into your system, it does.
How could it not?
Yeah, how could it not? And like mine were not ruptured, and most people's don't rupture. And that's like not, the root of their breast implant illness. It ends up being inflammation and the entire immune system responding negatively to the implants. And I would say like one analogy that we use a lot with clients, and it's very common in like environmental medicine, is the idea of like a toxic load. And you could think of it as like everybody is born with like, let's say like a cup, and it's like people have different amounts of that toxic load already filled. Like for me, I had eczema as a kid. I had a really severe nut allergy. And then I got like Lyme disease when I was like roughly like 10. So all of those things are toxins and like immune system burdens that were kind of, think of like being poured into this cup, filling it up. And then, I mean, things like trauma, exposure to chemicals and like your self-care products, all of that adds up. And, for some people, like me having so much already in my cup, the implants, for instance, like you pour it in the cup and it would overflow. So for me, I think that's what happened. And that's why I had symptoms so early on, within months of getting my implants, where some women, for them, it'll be 10 years, 15 years into getting their implants when they really start to feel unwell. And I think that's ultimately because that cup is slowly being filled over time. And the implants are a huge, huge, addition. And then I think some women, they don't end up really ever developing symptoms. And I think there's definitely probably some inflammation going on under the radar, but it's just that they have more capacity to handle it. So that being said, it's a combination of like inflammation, the immune system, really being so activated for so long. And thankfully, like I didn't develop any kind of autoimmune issues. My thyroid, I was like borderline hypothyroid, and it immediately went away within 3 months of getting them out. So that's a sign too, like the way that my body started kind of breaking down on itself. And oftentimes a lot of women will manifest with multiple autoimmune issues, after years of having implants. And I think that kind of speaks to the like autoimmunity aspect of that implants can trigger.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't realize there was heavy metals in them, so
Uh,
definitely makes sense that it's adding to that toxic load. I love
oh
that
yeah.
analogy of the cup because it is confusing sometimes. Like, well, why does this cause symptoms in one person and not in the other person? And
Yeah.
it just depends on what else that person's been through and what else they have going on in their body. And it's not if, but when. Like, eventually these things are gonna show up. So it's just about when someone, I think, gets that moment where they're like, okay, I'm willing to do anything to like feel better. And once you've kind of gotten to that place, then you're like all in from there moving forward.
Yeah.
Exactly.
With implants too, I think it's a really, I mean, I know, I don't think, I know it is a really hard pill to swallow,
Yeah.
especially like as a woman. And we live in such a world that like, puts physical appearance and external appearance like on such a pedestal.
Yeah.
It's a very hard thing to come to terms with that, like, these things that I spent so much money on and I love, they make me feel super feminine. Like this could be
Mhm.
the reason that I'm so sick.
Yeah.
Um, and it took a lot of like soul searching and really kind of coming to terms with like, who I am and where my value lies to then finally recognize
Mhm.
like, okay, it's okay. Like I can let these go. Like I needed them those years ago when I got them. I needed that confidence boost maybe back then, but like now I don't need it. Like now,
Yeah.
like where's my identity? Where's my value?
Yeah.
So I think it was ultimately, I mean, it's a gift because like you really get to ask those questions. Like you're forced to ask those questions, and like go there. And I think it ends up,
Mhm.
you know, being a gift and being a blessing long term. But it's hard. It's a really hard conversation to have.
Especially because
Yeah.
it's intertwined in your personality. I think as women, we
Mhm.
put so much effort and kind of thought into how we look and our femininity and all that. So I think, especially with the breast implants, it's like it's intertwined in your personality, and that's why it makes it such a hard pill to swallow and actually come to terms
Yeah.
with. I saw that through your own health journey because we lived together during that time. And just kind of, dealing with that and coping with that, because a lot of it is
Mhm.
psychological
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
only is like the healing process physical, but it's so
Mhm.
much more, I think, mental.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that y'all can help people from a place of empathy and from a place of like, we get it. Like, this sucks. We wish it wasn't this way because it's really hard. And, with IBS too, like being able to come from a place of like, I understand how bad you feel right now and how badly like you want help and you want answers. I can help people with PCOS and working through the mental side of like, wondering why you have this and why another girl can like eat a piece of pizza every day and still look
Yeah.
like a stick, like just the
Yeah.
the kind of mental
Yeah.
battle you have to go through when you're dealing with these different diagnoses, symptoms, etc. And so yeah, I think that is what makes both of you a great functional medicine practitioner to help people from that place of like, we get it, we've been there, and we can
Mhm.
empathize with you. And we're not just saying, oh, do this, get rid of all these toxic products that you like, get rid of your candles, do this and that, spend money on supplements. You're not just telling people, it's like, we care about people, we love people, we want them to feel their best and be able to thrive. And it's just giving them the steps and like the suggestions to get there and to let their body heal. So thank
Exactly.
you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Of course.
And then to kind of wrap back up with the gut, because I don't want to ignore all the people listening who want answers about their IBS type symptoms.
Yeah.
Because all
There's
of
a lot of
us,
us
to
out there.
some degree, oh my gosh, all of us need help with our gut health, and that's a great place to start. So, what are a few tips that y'all can leave the listeners with to just start, slowly improving their gut health?
Yeah. I would say like right off the bat, this is like I would say like our motto, our
Philosophy.
philosophy is that food is medicine. And it's like a revolutionary idea for like, I feel like the world right now, and for like Americans who have just been raised in this like traditional medicine and like healthcare system. But everything that you put in your body is going to have an impact. So, everything that you are eating, everything that you're like, all the chemicals in those foods, every ingredient is going to have an impact, and it's that being said, it's so important to prioritize like whole natural foods. And we always tell our clients that like you really want to stay as close to nature as possible. So that means like avoiding ultra processed foods, avoiding foods that have this long list of like complex lab created ingredients. And as we always say, it's kind of like go back to Eden, go back to the garden, try to get as close to your origins and your ancestors and like as close to the earth as possible. You know.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, I think also like you can do so much to foster good gut health through a whole foods diet. And so this could mean like consuming a diverse fiber-rich diet because fiber actually helps bind toxins and excess hormones out of the body to get excreted out of the body. I would also say avoid inflammatory oils so that all your seed oils, so canola, soybean, sunflower, grapeseed oil, they're in almost everything you see at the grocery store. So being mindful of ingredient labels is just like a tip that we give to all of our clients. And in our opinion, ingredients are so much more important than the calories in something.
I think like the whole fitness industry, it's like built upon this like calorie focused diet. And that's something that like I know both of us had to kind of break out of coming from like a fitness background was like just eating all like the 0 calorie, low calorie foods, like it wrecked my gut.
Yeah.
It's so bad for me. And I just thought that like, oh, if it fits my macros, like
It has
it's
to be
fine.
good,
It's fine.
yeah.
And especially because they're marketed as like health foods.
Yeah.
But truly it's so much more about the nutrients. It's like what is inside that matters. It's not the calories.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Another tip I thought of was I would recommend everyone to get a food sensitivity test, like the mediator release test. Food sensitivities and allergies are huge stressors on the body and can cause severe health issues and systemic inflammation over time. So knowing which foods to avoid for your body is fundamental. And also testing is so much easier than, following an elimination diet for months and then kind of like it eliminates a lot of the guesswork. So I really recommend to invest in a food sensitivity test at least once in your life and just know what is bothering you.
That was fundamental in like our healing journeys too. And then I think I would like wrap it up with just like ultimately stress. Stress is at the center of so many health issues, so many metabolic issues that we're seeing nowadays. And if you've ever been like very stressed or anxious about something, let's say like at work, and then you're getting like a stomach ache or like you're not hungry and like maybe you get like diarrhea later, like if that doesn't show you that like the mind and the gut are so intricately connected, like powerful, like I don't know what will. So ultimately, I think coming back to like just good old stress management techniques. So like meditating, mindfulness, just like getting outside, getting off your phone, eating in a like rest and digest or like parasympathetic state can do so much good. Your body's going to be able to digest properly and absorb nutrients. So really just being mindful of like the state of mind that you're in. Especially when you eat.
Yeah, that's so good. Slowing down. We live in such a fast-paced, busy culture. And I don't know about y'all, but for me, working with my clients, that's pretty much the hardest thing I think to help people with and change their minds about is the busy go, 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 like stress aspect and helping people realize like it is okay to slow down. It's okay to say no. It's okay not to be busy all the time. It's important to prioritize your sleep and get enough sleep because if you're not, that's going to wreak havoc. But that's such an important part. Like y'all are saying, stress can cause. Is it true? I've heard this that if your cortisol is off, it can kind of like a domino effect mess with all your other hormones down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we spent the course that we went through, like it spent like months on literally just focusing on
Just
cortisol and
Mm,
the impacts of cortisol. And I think, like I said earlier, there's like this cascade in the way that because everything's connected, one thing starts to go and you get this domino effect.
yeah.
And again, like, most, diseases and illnesses start from chronic, prolonged periods of stress. And stress can be, it can be work, it can be like emotional, mental stress, but it can also be like internal things. And we see a lot of stress in terms of like the gut with like inflammatory foods are a huge stressor. Having bacterial overgrowths and parasites, all of those things put internal stress on the body.
Mm,
And raise that cortisol, and then we see these imbalances arise. So managing stress internally and externally is
mm,
like step one.
Yeah.
That is so important. And
yeah.
I know as both of us, like all of us with like being coaches,
Yeah.
it's a tough thing to like convey to clients because it's just the way that we're wired nowadays, I think.
Hmm.
I think once people start to tap into the more like detail, like unplugged kind of
Hmm.
in their own bubble sort of like
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
and slowing down, they realize like how that's where true healing is found.
Yeah. Because at the end of the
That's so
day,
good.
a stressed body cannot heal.
No.
Yeah.
Even if we give you all of like the top of the top recommendations and you're on the right supplements and you're eating the right foods,
It
if
won't
you're
work.
stressed, it won't.
And I like how you said internal and external stress. Like if your gut is stressed, then that can cause issues, but also prioritizing the external stress too.
Yeah.
So good. So everyone listening needs to go take a food sensitivity test with you guys. I'm putting your link to your Instagram and your website in the description so everyone can find you guys and start optimizing their gut health, their hormone health. Thank you both so much for being here and sharing all this incredible information today.
Well, thank you for having us, Madison.
Yeah, this was so
Of course.
wonderful. We really loved connecting and getting to share our story. We hope that some people can take something good from this and improve their gut health and renew their health.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Space for Grace podcast. Be sure to check out the description for any links or resources that were mentioned during this episode. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, share with a friend, and leave a review. I hope you're leaving today educated, inspired, and ready to flourish. This is Space for Grace.